Empathy actually is a strategy as you go into leadership to me, right? You have to be conscious of how your team feels, how they work, all of those things. If you're not looking and listening and understanding, you're missing the point of leading a team.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I cannot believe it, the final episode of the recruitment podcast. I'm actually quite sad, because we're 15 episodes in and that's it. We're done. Final episode. So I'm your host, Kate O'Neill. The podcast itself is by Recruit CRM. Any of the avid listeners that have listened to everyone will know this by now. It has been such an incredible journey. I was saying before we press record, I have learned so much from every single guest that we've had on. It has been amazing. So everyone's brought so many great insights, stories, and we've had some of the best minds of recruitment on as guests. And we've got another person here today with me to share some amazing, again, insights, stories, knowledge, tons of value. So we're closing the season with an inspiring and thought-provoking conversation about something I'm always very interested in, leadership in recruitment and what it takes to lead effectively in our ever-evolving, fast-evolving industry. And we're also going to touch on things like the role of empathy and inclusion in building stronger teams. So let me get the intro done for this episode so we can get stuck into the questions. So I'm thrilled to be joined by somebody who embodies leadership, strategy, and the human touch in recruitment, and that is Desiree Goldie.
First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Of course, I know Recruit CRM and listen to the podcast, so excited to be a guest. I've had a very non-linear path throughout my career, which has brought me to the point that I'm at right now. I work for a global talent advisory firm. I have held many positions within the organization, but right now I'm the director of marketing and culture. And the culture is on there because my passion lies in inclusivity, diversity, equity, inclusion, and bringing that to organizations, to leaders, to really help them understand how to navigate this world that we live in and how to lead teams effectively. So super important for me. The journey's been exciting. And it's been bumpy, but it's been a great one.
Good. I think it would be boring if it wasn't bumpy sometimes, wouldn't it?
Right?
That's what
I
makes
like
it fun.
bumpy. I like
yeah,
it.
me too. Me too. So, I mean, leadership in recruitment, leadership in general, actually, is such a vast topic. So, to get us started, I wanted to talk about what you think makes an effective leader in today's sort of recruitment landscape. So, like, from your experience, what are the key traits you see that define sort of a talented and successful leader in our field?
Yeah, I think they're the best leaders I see doing this work in recruitment are a mix of strategy and empathy, right? They are able to make really hard decisions, data-driven decisions, actionable decisions, but they also are empathetic to their teams. And, I always say empathy is a strategy. So, right, we're connecting the two, but empathy actually is a strategy as you go into leadership to me, right? You have to be conscious of how your team feels, how they work, all of those things. If you're not looking and listening and understanding, you're missing the point of leading a team, right?
Yeah.
I've said for so many years that the worst thing we do in leadership is we don't train people how to be leaders. We stick them in the slot and we're like, hey, go for it. Go lead this 50-person, 20-person, 10-person team with no ability to do it, right? We're like, yeah, go ahead and do that and make profits for the company and be successful. But we haven't given them the tools and resources to do that. And it's a struggle for many, right? We are so focused on doing a good job ourselves that we forget about the rest of the team. And recruitment is one of those places where it's essential to do that. Recruiters are overworked. Usually there's no bandwidth. They're sometimes not seen as valuable to the organization. There's a lot of ups and downs in recruiting. And unless you're a leader who recognizes that, addresses it with your team, and works with them individually to get to a place where you're running like a well-oiled machine, it's going to be a struggle. And
Yeah.
it's really tough out there, right? With the job market being crazy, job seekers, and all the things combined, pressure from hiring managers, pressure from stakeholders, it can feel like a ball of chaos consistently.
Yeah.
So you need to be that, that kind of calm source that leads through the noise.
Yeah. And I mean, I can speak for the UK only on this, right? But you may see the same thing. What happens a lot here is the top billers, put them in a management role. They'll be great because they've been a
Right.
top biller. But it's a
Right.
different skill set.
Totally.
And sometimes they don't. I mean, I know this is a long time ago now when I got put in that position. I thought I wanted it. When it happened, the reality of it was I was like, actually, I don't really want to do this. I want to bill. And being a billing manager is so hard. And yeah, I think you've got to sort of let the reins go as a manager of your work is all the priority because
Right.
that team needs you. And like you say, that empathy, like caring, are they okay? How do they feel? Supporting them. Like you need to be able to get the best out of them and you should want to get the best out of them. And I just think sometimes the wrong people are put, like those qualities you spoke about, they're
Right.
lacking definitely the empathy
Yeah.
side of it.
Yes.
And then
All
people
the
lose out, don't
time,
they?
right? All the time we see it. We talk about toxic work environments all the time, right? If you're on LinkedIn
Mm,
for 5 minutes, you see 10 posts about it.
yeah.
The thing that creates those toxic work environments is usually because someone that does bring empathy to the table. And I agree
Mm,
with you. I don't think everybody's built for leadership. And I also think not everybody wants it. And these organizations force them to take these roles. And they're like, I don't even want to do this. I have no interest in leading people. I have no interest in wanting to do this work, but I'm being kind of forced into that position because we assume that's the natural course of our careers. But
yeah.
I think being an individual contributor is just more important sometimes than actually being the leader. So I hope that organizations start to take a step back, especially in recruiting, and saying, hey, let's press pause, really talk to the employees, see if they really want this, and then give them the tools to be able to do that job. And it's
Yeah.
not happening consistently right now at all.
No. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So, how do you see leadership evolving to support inclusivity and belonging in recruitment teams? Because obviously, well, from what I see over here, this is something that's lacking as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're shifting from this kind of command and control atmosphere of leadership. And we're getting to a place of collaboration and empowerment.
Mm,
And the more you can focus on those, the more inclusive your environment becomes. If we talk more about empowering you to make decisions, empowering you to feel like your voice is heard, that I'm listening, all of those things, and then collaboration amongst teams to share ideas, to talk about them in a respectful way, we get to a more inclusive environment. The other part of this is that psychological safety piece, which I don't think we talk about enough. Is this a safe
no.
space for me to say the things I need to say or opinions that I have? And I won't be targeted or demeaned or, reprimanded for those ideas. Going back to that toxic work environment kind of idea, when we don't feel like we can say anything, we stay silent and we feel like it's toxic, but it actually is just because we're not being heard, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a voice. I don't want to work, most of us work 40 hours. Some of us, like my crazy self, work, so upwards of
Same.
60, right? So if I'm spending 60 hours to 70 hours in a job, I want to be heard. I want you to listen to me when I think something's wrong or we're not doing it right, or I have an opinion and we're not doing that enough. We have this command idea and control idea of what the narrative should be, and we're not giving some, leeway to the narrative.
Mm.
Those leaders who choose to embrace that type of environment lead to more inclusive teams, which we know leads to productivity and more innovation. It's just proven time and time again.
The thing is, like, if you create that sort of environment, remember, like, those people in your team that are on the front line, so they are
Yeah.
doing every day the job that, that makes the business. I know everybody contributes, right? But
Right.
ultimately brings in a lot of money for the business, okay?
Sure.
But also, if you create a space where people can speak up about, I don't know, problems, issues, opinions, they're also going to come up with ideas. You don't know everything as a manager, and you don't have to know everything as a manager. The people within your team, even the newbies, can sometimes have these great ideas, but if you create an environment where they feel stifled and frightened to talk, then you're not going to get access to those ideas, and they
Can
may even
you
take them somewhere else.
can you imagine a world like if you're in your home and you want to make dinner and everybody there's one commander of the dinner and you have no opinion to what you get to eat it's like a weird, it's a weird idea. Even though there's a fridge full of things to eat, you are
Yeah.
commanded to eat this one thing. Right. And so that's the version of leadership we have right now. It's this version of leadership where there may be all these ideas and things and product, ideas about how we can move forward. And we're stopping people because we're literally saying, you get this one box because I am
Mm.
a leader. I know everything. I control how the narrative goes. You don't get your ideas on the table. That it can't work like that anymore. And in the future of work, the world we live in today, employees aren't putting up with that anymore, right?
Mm.
Now, I'm in the Gen X generation where, we put up with a ton of stuff. But I think as new generations start to come into the market more and more, you're going to have to adapt how you lead them because
Yeah.
they're just not putting up with the same stuff that, earlier generations have chosen to put up with. I mean, I don't put
Yeah.
up with stuff that my parents put up with. I just don't. And, and it will change, and it's changing and evolving over time. And leadership has to look different for those generations.
Yeah, definitely. So, how can recruitment leaders find that sweet spot between, driving performance, which in recruitment is important, but also
Yes.
fostering that supportive, human-centered culture? Because ultimately, that's what people are struggling with, isn't it? Is the balance?
Yeah, in recruitment, it's really interesting to me because I think it's about alignment, right? We all have these KPIs and goals in recruitment at organizations. If you're an agency, it's the billing, it's the, here's the goals. But I think there need to be also actionable steps towards that goal and have alignment of the entire team, right? Do they understand why the goal is happening and how we're
Mm.
going to get there? And I think we do the why most of the time, why we need to do it, but we don't do the how. How are we going to get there? What are the actionable steps we need to take to get there? And how are you a piece of that puzzle? If
Yeah.
you can make those all align in a perfect universe, then you have a well-oiled machine going out and actually doing things. Because I think I talk about this all the time about recruiting needing to be a strategic business partner, right? We need to be providing strategy and providing guidance to the business. Well, you can't do that if your recruiting team doesn't even understand how they're able to do that and how they're able to get there. And also, do they have the resources or the training necessary to provide that kind of support to the business?
Mm.
It's a tough road when you're just looking at, maybe you have 50 recs sitting on your desk, you have 50 job adverts that you need to fill. You have all of that, but don't have the resources. You don't have a manager who leads with empathy because you have 50 recs. Now you're like supposed to be a strategic partner to the business with no time, right? It's crazy. And that's why
Yeah, it's
recruitment
mental.
is like, you'll see all these memes of a crazy person in recruitment and they're like really old and like that's
I'm
because
like, is
that's
that
what it
me?
no, that's me after all these years in it. But that's how you feel all every day in recruitment. And I think leaders need, I think we recognize it. We just don't know how to get out of it. And
Yeah.
we really need to be working on how do we get out of it? How do you find that sweet spot of alignment? And how do you move forward with your team once you have that alignment?
Mm,
It's tough.
yeah.
It's
The
tough.
why and the how, yeah, that's really important. And I think like sometimes the why gets lost because sometimes these KPIs, these leaders get so fixated on them. In the end, the consultants, it's just about achieving the numbers and the
Yeah.
why gets forgotten. So I don't know, like speak to X amount of candidates a day and they rush them and it's like, but I've got to achieve the numbers. Well, let's think, why are you ringing these candidates?
Right.
What are you actually trying to achieve? Because then it gets
Right.
lost. But like you say, the how needs to be there as well. Because if they don't know how actually to screen a candidate properly,
Right.
sorry, for example, then the why is it's all gonna get lost. Yeah, it's all gonna be scrambled. It's just
It's
making it
crazy.
harder for them.
Right. It's you're just making your teams work harder. And as a leader, this is why leadership isn't easy. It's not for the faint of heart, I always say, because unless
Mm,
you really are invested in your people and them feeling fulfilled in their role, you start to fail really quickly. Right? If someone's struggling because they have these recs, but they don't even screen candidates properly, what are you really achieving? You just have a body in the seat and an order taker. And that's what I want recruitment to get away from is this
yeah.
version of an order taker in the business that doesn't understand the why, the how, and what the end result produces, right? Because we're in the people business, right? People's lives are affected, right? And so the end result isn't just the goal and the KPI, it's the effects of people on people's lives and the world that we live in.
So balance, diversity, and inclusion are, I mean, they're often top priorities for companies. I see it a lot on LinkedIn. People talk about it being a priority, but it's not always easy to achieve. So how can leaders make DE and I initiatives more than just like a chat box, like
Yeah.
actually a priority and actually change things?
I believe that I don't care what you call it, you can call DEI whatever you want, but there is a fundamental proof to the fact that it works. And the more diverse your teams are, the better that they perform. And I think it has to be truly ingrained in your culture and your process. You cannot say, I'm just going to put a bunch of diverse people in the seat and hope they survive, right? And hope that we are going to be productive, because that's not how it works. That's not
No.
how we should be trying to achieve these D&I goals, right? They shouldn't be afterthoughts. It shouldn't be like we really, want diverse candidates, but we're not going to make sure there's a culture of inclusion and belonging once they get here. We're not going to support them. We're not going to do all the things necessary for them to succeed. And then the process also has to be there. What are your processes for bringing in and onboarding? What are your processes for thinking about how that diverse person may feel as they come onto a team of, very like people? And I think we miss that piece of it. We get the
Mm,
diversity piece down, right? Where we can find the diverse people, not all the time, but you can find that diverse hire, but it's how you onboard them and bring them on, include them in the narrative of your organization that gets lost for a lot of people. And I think that's where we're at
yeah.
right now in
The
the
job's
DI
not done
space.
just because you've hired somebody. That's
Right.
the start, really, isn't it?
Right. It's like anything else. It's like for any employee, but definitely for that diverse candidate that's coming into an area where they may feel excluded from the conversation or from how the organization works or the holidays that the organization celebrates. I always talk about this in HR. We get these federal holidays in the United States. Sometimes you get 7, sometimes you get 11. It just depends on the company. But what if none of those holidays are my cultural identification, right? Like I don't identify with any of those holidays. What about my holidays, right? And
Yeah.
supplying those kind of personal days and things like that helps an organization feel like they're including everyone, right? DEI starts to become about more than just DEI. It becomes about retention, mentorship. It becomes all these other things that have to make DEI work, to make the puzzle work in DEI. It's a huge thing that I think we're missing the narrative because of all the media. We're missing the true story of diversity, equity, and
Mm.
inclusion because we've chosen to make it a media praise. This is more about just making people feel included, welcome, understood, valued, and heard in an organization. And it's
And this
tough.
brings that empathy piece into it again,
Right,
doesn't
here
it?
we go again, right? We bring it back to
That buzzword.
empathy.
You
It's
circle
my
back.
favorite word, by the way. It's my favorite word. If I could say it all the time, I would because I say it so much, but it's true, right?
Mm.
Empathy, I truly believe is a strategy and for so many things that we talk about in leadership. If you just are a little more empathetic, you would view this in some other way than the selfish way. And you would
Mm.
start to think about those policies, procedures, goals, all of those things about how people achieve things in recruitment. You would think about it in a different way because you have empathy for someone, you have empathy for others. And that is huge. Huge, huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Well, it's time, everybody, for the last time. I'm a bit sad about this. To do my cheeky little segue into Recruit CRM. So I'm going to really relish this because this, like I said, will be for this season anyway, the last time I get to do this. So for leaders, um, the CRM is just as important as it is for the consultants. So and for a lot of leaders, we've talked about how busy people are, the level of sort of responsibility you get. It's a challenge being a leader. You need your CRM to be simple, easy to use, and give you what you need when it matters, basically. But also we've talked about empathy, building relationships with your team, understanding them. I actually think having a great CRM can be a game changer and relate to that as well. So I mean, I've mentioned other features. If we think more about the benefits on the sort of technical sort of process side of recruitment, we've got like the candidate matching, the automated follow-ups. There's loads of AI powered tools, amazing help functions where you can actually talk to a real person, not just a bot. um, there's loads of tools on there to make your job and your consultant's job easier as a leader. But for me as well, I think there's a lot. Sometimes if you're trying to keep an eye on your team, make sure they're okay. A lot can be said sometimes for the activity that your team is doing, especially if they work flexibly and remotely. And how active are they? How much are they speaking to candidates? What's, I don't know, business development activities? Because if there's a change in that and you can see it from the data, there could be something going on with that person. And it's sort of, if you haven't spotted it by visually speaking and seeing them, it might be a cue to think, something's not right with this person. Maybe I need to have a chat with them, check they're okay, bringing that empathy side back into it again. So for me, the CRM and having a good CRM, yes, there's loads of sort of output, input, data, technical processy stuff that, yes, Recruit CRM is great for. But as a leader, to have that sort of insight into your team, I think is really important, really, really important. And there's loads of tools on there designed for prioritizing things like efficiency, inclusivity, all of that stuff. So I'm going to mention it again at the end. If you want free demo, want to see what it's all about, you just need to visit recruitcrm.io, but the link is in the caption for this podcast as well. You can see all the features, see how it can transform your team and make leading easier, basically. So I'll come back to that at the end. But I do want to come back to Desiree because we've got a couple more questions. So leadership is about driving impact at the end of the day, but it's also, we've already talked about learning and adapting. So there's going to be some people listening to this that aren't yet in a leadership role. They're aspiring to be a leader. They want to sort of go up the ladder. What advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, first of all, I would really research what it is to be a manager or a leader, right? What are the real responsibilities on a day-to-day basis, and take some time and reflect on whether that's what you want your life to be. I did a leadership survey a while ago, and people always put work-life balance as their like number one thing they want. Flexibility is their second, third, money, right? Which is interesting. Money isn't usually first, right? So if those are your priorities, as you look at your priority list, why, make sure that leadership is the next step for you, because there is sometimes no work-life balance in leadership. Sometimes there is no flexibility when you have to answer a call at 8 o'clock because the server went down or something crazy. I don't anybody's role, right? Or a candidate didn't accept their offer and now you have to scramble around. So there is this piece of it that I think people don't do, which is the pros and cons of going into leadership. And I really hope that people take the time to reflect on what that means. I also encourage people to take training and leadership courses, right?
Yes.
If your organization does not offer them to you, please take those courses, whether it is how to lead people, find a methodology that you like, how to be an inclusive leaders are great courses to take. I know LinkedIn offers a lot of these things. Please take those courses and upskill your actual empathy and soft skills piece of it, because I'm sure if you're thinking about leadership or have been talked to about leadership, you're obviously a great performer. So you don't need that piece of it. What you need is that soft skills piece that you may be missing. So yeah, essential.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I wish I'd done like a pros and cons list, or just educated myself a bit more on what it really meant to be a manager more than the job title that I was excited about. Because honestly, it must have been about 8 years ago now when I did it. I probably would have said, actually, I don't want to do that. I think I'll just do a sideways move instead, or
Right.
but you just think, oh, the next step is to be a manager. So
Right.
I'll be a manager. But yeah, I think that is really important. And also like go and speak to other leaders in the business. Like
Yeah.
go and ask them like, what does a good day look like? What does a bad day look like? Like hit me with it. Like be
Right.
honest. Like like that will help me make a decision.
Yeah. And we're told that this is the plan that we should be on, right? We should be working through our careers and work up the titles and all of the nonsense. But I don't believe that's everybody's path. And I truly believe that staying as a individual contributor sometimes is the best move for most people. And leadership isn't the way. And I agree with you. Talking to people, I know when I was taking the last role I had, I really did talk to a lot of people in the space because I was like, I didn't even understand what I was supposed to be doing. So, that was like a director title in talent. And I really was struggling to like formulate what that looked like. And so I did a lot and some of my closest contacts now are in that space because I spent a lot of time talking to them and got a clear idea of whether it was the right move for me. So I completely agree with you about that point.
And finally, just to wrap up the conversation, what would be, if you had to pick one leadership principle or philosophy that you'd want every listener to take away from today's chat, what would it be? Put you on the spot a bit there.
Woo! Oh my gosh. I would say adaptability. I think if you are not adaptable in this crazy world we live in, if you're so stringent on your principles and your process and you're not going to survive leadership. You have to be adaptable, and be able to move and change and flex with your people, and with the organization and so many other things. But that, and I'll go back to empathy again, but adaptability would be a great one as well.
Yeah, No, I totally agree. And I think for anybody that is, well, whether you're a leader or aspiring, massive takeaway for that one is that adaptability piece, because our industry is ever adapting and evolving, let alone the people that you deal with and
Right.
your sort of maybe leadership style and the company that you work in, so it's a must, isn't it, basically? So
Absolutely.
love that you've highlighted that.
Absolutely.
So with that, we conclude this season of the Recruitment Podcast. What an incredible conversation to end on. I've learned so much from this. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much, Desiree, for joining me, sharing your wisdom and experiences with us. To all the listeners, whether you've joined just for this episode or you've listened to every single one, if you haven't listened to every single one, you should definitely go back and listen to it all. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. I was going to say, I hope you've gained valuable insights. I know you will have gained valuable insights and ideas from all the conversations, all the guests that we've had on this season, and maybe a tiny little bit from me as well with my little inputs here and there. But look, if you want to connect with Desiree, which I would suggest you do, her LinkedIn profile is linked in the description. So if you're looking for more leadership, recruitment insights from her, get in touch and connect. You've got all my details in the description as well. So if you're not sick of me already and you do want to talk to me more, then you can contact me using any of the links that we've got in the description below. And look, if you're still interested in Recruit CRM, you want that free demo, you want to learn more about it, remember it's recruitcrm.io, but the link again is in the description if I've read that out wrong. Until next time, take care, everybody. Again, thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Desiree for joining me today. I will see you very soon.
Thank you, Kate.